to the community. Checkpoints are everywhere on the road from the city to the outlying villages. The government has increased the number of police and army troops in the area, stating the necessity of preventing terrorist attacks by Islamic separatists, also restricting contact between outsiders and the local Muslim population. The army and the police do not want the world to know what is going on. They let us through because they have no excuse to stop us from going in, but we know that they will report to their superiors and watch us very closely to check on what we are doing. Most cases of human rights violations perpetrated by the police and army happen in small villages like this one. Ostracized and discriminated by the rest of society, people in southern Thailand are isolated and therefore have no one to turn to in redressing their grievances. I decided that the most important thing was to listen to them and share their pain and empathize. Sad stories began to pour out from victims' families as soon as I met them. On the night of March 19, 2008, army soldiers burst into the village and arrested many villagers without warning or explanation.
เขามาล้อมจับกูเที่ยงคืนแล้วก็เข้ามาจับตัวพ่อคือต่อเย่บุกดิมอเป็นกะsubuh lah. Pas sudah tu yo mek wagi di ropak. Sudah mek ropak yo ko mek gi theleng khao di Nago lah.
The army said they were looking for a bomb-making facility in the village and arrested 6 people, including the local imam. They were taken to the barracks at Wat Suan Tam Special Task Force Camp and imprisoned in a truck cargo hold.
Ikut lek malai jemaah tu yo ambil gi lah rai ambil gi kan yang satu tu yo ambil gi ayah boleh jalan lagi boleh ayah duk jalan tu boleh tunggu kereta yo sepak yo gocoh boleh gi siapa di pak yo tu bodoh siapa yo bila yo ko paman je ke tengah je tu yo wak gi tak lek lepas tu yo ambil wagi wak lagu mana lah lepas tu ayah lek tak agak boy yang 3 tu ayah tak agak roh nak ngakak roh nak tak kereta ngakak yo ko nak kereta tu yo pakai tip nak tak kereta dah.
Imam Kaseng's dead body revealed obvious signs of severe beating and torture. But most importantly, there was no hard evidence linking Imam Yapa Kaseng to the region's Islamic separatists. There were simply too many people dying as a result of unlawful imprisonment and torture.
Ask the police to have the investigation on their father dead, so the victim's family had been treated. So I want to encourage them and telling them how you can struggle in the judicial system. And I think it's very important. Yes, not using violence, but using non-violence by the law, the rule of law.
Being of a different ethnicity and religion have made Muslims a target of human rights abuses, but the situation will improve once we stop living in fear and band together to fight this injustice. The second village on my itinerary has also experienced an attack by soldiers, where they fired their rifles at villagers collecting rubber last March. One of the villagers was killed and 8 were taken away.
เขาไปกรีดยางแล้วก็โดนจับส่วนพ่อก็เสร็จจากละหมาดที่มัสยิดแล้วก็เขาล้อมไงก็ชก39เราขอไงขอเสื้อกับกางเกงไปซักกลับมาซักแต่เขาไม่ให้สามี
ไม่ได้บอกว่า
เสื้อเปื้อนเลือดอันนี้พอเขาพาไปสถานีตังหยงเขาก็เลยบอก
I am here to collect testimony on the incident last March. Every single person in the room is a victim of state terror perpetrated by the state. My visit to a certain village concerning a specific case usually opens the floodgates on so many other cases, a testament to how serious the level of state violence is.
Everybody has their cases. Some have been arrested, some have been killed, some have been abducted. Yes. Nobody that didn't have nothing. Nobody that their husband and their male relative is not at home now. Most of them is women in this village.
Last May, a group of soldiers surprised a family in a village in Yala province, shooting 3 people dead in the middle of a prayer and raped the daughter before killing her also. Other soldiers opened fire on a packed bus returning from a funeral of an imam, killing 5 people and leaving dozens wounded. There was also an incident where a Muslim madrasa was fired upon for being a terrorist headquarters. All in all, 3,000 people were killed in southern Thailand over the last 4 years.
Under the state of emergency and under the internal security law is provide impunity to the government officers. It is the way to encourage military or the police to abuse their power because they don't be worried about their responsibility. Those they can do whatever they want, without being afraid of being prosecuted or even disciplined.
Southern Thailand, like the rest of the country, was once a tourist hotspot that attracted many travelers. But the conflict has made it an area to be avoided, led to closing of many of its factories, and left it the poorest region in Thailand. The dismal situation in southern Thailand can be traced back to the tenure of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. After being elected Prime Minister in 2001, Thaksin created a climate of conflict between Thailand's different ethnicities with policies for majority Thai.
Some situation went terribly bad because Mr. Thaksin was very confident that as a Buddhist country he was well supported and he was not giving a good understanding to the cultural diversity of the southernmost provinces. So he made some statements that make the Muslims felt discriminated.
Thaksin's popularity was centered on Chiang Mai and the rest of the northern and northeastern Thailand. Thaksin instituted favorable policies towards regions that supported him, while denying government support to regions where he was not popular. Regional and religious discrimination resulted in schism between the majority Thai and the minorities, which Thaksin used to his political advantage. This meant that southern region with predominantly Muslim populations were politically isolated, and discontent naturally rose.
Mr. Thaksin was confident that he can govern the country without relying on the previous government southern administrative center. So he abolished it. So he relied more on police and also military.
Muslims in southern Thailand responded to this discrimination with peaceful protests demanding more fair and impartial policies. Their demands went unheeded by the government, which sealed off the area with the help of police and the military and responded with brutal oppression. It set off a political spiral that led to killing of many Muslim leaders and innocent residents. The extremists responded to the military's atrocities by force of arms, and terrorist incidents increased exponentially beginning in 2002. On top of discrimination that hurt them in untold ways, the Muslims are now being traumatized by a severe state of terror.
In this area, 3 provinces, we use 3 laws. Martial law, and then emergency decree, and then the criminal law, and that give so much power to the military. When the official use violence, and then the insurgent also use violence. So we think that the officer, the military, to stop to use violence with the people that had been arrested, no torture, no extrajudicial killing.
At the center of the city in Pattani province is the Kruse Mosque, a venerable place of worship built over 200 years ago. For Thailand's Muslim population, this mosque has a significance that makes it more than an ordinary place of worship. It is a site of pilgrimage for the Muslim faithful from all over Thailand. But all hell broke loose on April 28, 2004, when dozens of people died in the grounds. A separatist band that attacked military bases and police stations took refuge inside the mosque the night before, and army troops had it surrounded to arrest the insurgents. The following day, 9 a.m. April 28th, the troopers stormed the mosque firing automatic rifles and grenade launchers in full view of the city's residents. "32 people would lose their lives from the fighting.
They could arrest these people, you know. They shouldn't kill them, because they were surrounded and they couldn't go anywhere. That's the things that make people feel quite bad, and also that the government was blamed by many people that they use the excessive force.
When the dust had settled, the government came out in support of the army, announcing that those killed were rebels and terrorists, and denied that the troops had used excessive force.
They came with a machine gun, with M16, for example. They opened fire to our authority, and then those who had small guns, and so they tried to kill our policemen and military also.